Today we're going to talk about Workbook 3A, Exercise 6. In the textbook, this is on pages 20 and 21. This is the best part about Singapore Math. It's the awesome word problems. So on page 20, it has more words written as a sentence. I just wrote down the facts. When I read this, I noticed that Mary made 686 cookies. She sold some of them, 290. If 298 were left over, how many cookies did she sell? Now, when you think about that, you need to think about parts and whole. If she made 686, that number is a whole number. It's what she made. She sold some. The part that she sold is a part. The part that was left is the other part. We could show that with a picture. And I think Singapore Math knows that not all of us are great at drawing, so it often makes a picture with a simple bar. So Mary made 686 cookies. If this bar represents the 686 cookies, then you know and I know that some of them were sold and some of them were left. Now, it doesn't matter where I drew the line. I'm not trying to say more were sold, or I don't know if it was more sold or not sold, but I can just draw the line and know that one part sold and one part was left, and the whole thing is 686 cookies. So what do I know? I know that there are 298 that are left. And if I want to know how many did she sell, then we can figure out how to do that, right? If I know the whole, 686, and I know a part, 298, then I can find the other part, and that's what I'm looking for. That's how many were sold. Now, you've done enough math with me already to know that this is going to be a subtraction problem, and we're going to figure out the difference between 686 and 298, or we're going to subtract 686 minus 298, but I want to show you 3 different ways of getting the answer. As we've talked about before, it's good to be able to think about math in different ways. First, it is perfectly fine to make the problems a vertical math problem and subtract. 6 ones take away 8 ones can't be done, so I would borrow a 10 and make that 16 ones. 16 ones minus 8 ones is 8 ones. But then when I try to do 7 tens take away 9 tens, I don't have enough tens, so I could borrow from the hundreds. Now I have 5 hundreds, but I have 17 tens, and that gives me 8 tens left. 500 minus 200 is 300. So what that tells me is the part that I don't know is 388. 686 is the whole, and 388 and 298 are the parts. That's a fine way to do it, but you really have to write it down and do a lot of writing to do it. The other 2 ways are excellent ways to think about it that would allow you to do it quicker in your mind. And I think that should be our goal, but you have to kind of grow into that at whatever time you can grow into that. Some of you will be able to do it now. Some of you, this will seem strange, but try it. See if you can learn to think this way about the problem. So the second thing I want to show you is 686 subtract 298. I looked at 298 and I thought, you know, that's really close to 300. And I know that 686 could break down into 386 and 300. And if I took 300 and subtracted 298, I would have 2 left. So 386 and 2 is 388. That's really easy math to do. I could also think about going from 298 to 686, and I could think, you know, from 298, I could add 2 to get to 300. From 300 to go to 686, I need to add 386. So from 298 to 386 is adding 388. And we know that subtraction and addition are really the same thing kind of backwards. So if to go from 298 to 686 means I add 388, then that tells me this is the whole, this is a part, and this one's a part. I think option 2 and 3 are where we need to start trying to make our mind think that way. That's where we need to go. Number 1 option is a fine thing to do, but you have to have paper and pencil. I think it's good to try and think in ways that you can do it mentally. Let's look at number 5. A man sold 230 balloons at a carnival in the morning. He sold another 86 balloons in the evening. How many balloons did he sell in all? When you read this, how many did he sell in all? Does it sound like 230 is a part? 86 is a part? And we're trying to find the whole that he sold? And when you realize that you have a part and another part, and you're looking for the whole, that should make your mind think, I know just what to do. I'm going to do an addition problem. 230 add 86 is going to tell me how many balloons he sold in all. Now, then we have to add those together. Notice I have 3 tens and 8 tens. That means I'm going to have 10 tens, which gives me 300, and I'll have 1 10 extra, and of course the 6 ones carries along, right? 30 and 80, if I think of 30 as 2 tens and 1 10, then I have another 100 to go with the 2, so that's the 300. Then I have 10 and 6 left over. The reason we did all that practice, counting and adding with place values, is so you could look at this number and realize that those tens make you have 300 with 1 10 left over, and the 6 comes along with it. How many balloons did he sell in all? He sold 316. In Primary Math 2, we added those numbers this way, right to left. 0 plus 6 is 6. 8 plus 3 is a 10 and an extra. 2 plus 1 is 3. Again, that's fine to work it that way. I do think that it's good to try to think about working things with mental math like I did on this one. And mental math doesn't mean you never write anything down. Maybe you write something down, but you're not necessarily going right to left with a vertical math problem. Let's look at page 21, problem number 6. This problem tells us there are 134 girls and 119 boys took part in an art competition. The question is, how many more girls than boys were there? Now you can see that we have 134 girls. That's the part of the group that is girls. There are 119 boys, and we could find the altogether number if we wanted to, but that's not what the question asks. The question asks how many more girls than boys. So if we represent that with a lovely bar that is much easier to draw than a girl, and we say that picture represents 134, that's the girls. And if I draw a picture of the boys, the 119 that is representing the boys is a smaller picture. When I want to know how many more, I have this idea. These 119 girls and these 119 boys match up. They're the same. This part is how many more I have. So to find how many more there are, I also want to find that it's the same thing as saying what is the difference in the number of girls and boys. When you're trying to find a difference, you're going to subtract. You could say how many more girls than boys. You could even say how many fewer boys than girls. There are 3 ways you could ask this question, at least 3 ways. And we've talked about all of them, but you need to recognize when you read this, it's asking the same thing. The difference in the number of girls and boys, how many more girls than boys, how many fewer boys than girls. Each one of those problems is going to take the number of girls and subtract the number of boys. And then, not surprisingly, there's more than one way we could do that problem. Of course, you could make it a vertical math problem. I keep saying this. This is not my favorite way for you to do it, but right now, if that's the comfortable way for you, it's okay. But let's try to begin thinking about it in a different way. 134, take away 119. I didn't have enough ones, so I borrowed a 10 and made it 2 10s and 14 ones. That allowed me to subtract 14 ones minus 9, 2 10s minus 1 10. All of my hundreds disappear, and that tells me there are 14 more girls in the group. But another way to think about 134 minus 119, I could think about it as, 119 is pretty close to 120, and 120 is 14 away from 134. In other words, the number bond, right, of 14 and 120, I can think of the easiest number that I can subtract in my head is 120, and 120 minus 19 is 1, so I'll have the 14 and the 1, which will give me 15. Now, the only problem with this way is that it makes you keep more things in your head. You have to keep thinking about 14 and then find the 1 and put them together, and you could write it down just like I did. And then eventually, as you get older and more able to think and keep things straight in your mind as you're thinking, you'll be able to do it in your head without writing anything down. But right now, I think that's an easier way to do it than writing it down vertically and subtracting. One more way you could do it is think about how far do I go to get from 119 to 134? Well, going to the next 20, that's easy, or to the next 10. 119 needs 1 to get to 120. I know that from 120 I need 1 more 10 and 4 more 1s. And so that tells me that I need to add 15 to get from 119 to 134. And so I know that there's 15 more girls than boys. That's, again, 3 ways to do it. And I like the last 2 better than the first one. All right, one more problem. Maylin saved $184. She saved $63 more than Betty. How much did Betty save? This is a great one to draw a quick picture. Again, that's why we use these lovely bars, because the quick picture makes it easier to see. What are they telling us on this? This is Maylin. This is Betty. Maylin saved $184. That's the total amount she saved. But then I'm told that she saved $63 more than Betty. So what that means is the more part is the 63 part. And the question is, how much did Betty save? Do you notice the amount that Maylin saved and that Betty saved in this part of Maylin's graph is going to be the same? So if I found the rest of Maylin's without the $63, I would know how much Betty saved. Drawing a picture makes this really obvious. Without the picture, the words seem to be maybe a little confusing. We have 184. If I got rid of the 63, they would have the same amount. So 184 minus 63 is going to be my goal. I can do that. 184 minus 63. This is a particularly easy one because 4 minus 3 is 1, 8 minus 6 is 2, 100 continues on. Betty has $121. But again, rather than writing it, maybe we can think about it mentally. 184 minus 63, again, if you notice that we don't have to change the tens or the ones, we just end up with 100. 8 tens minus 6 tens is 2 tens. 4 ones minus 3 ones is 1 1. And I went on this one from left to right because I can see that I'm not going to have to change the tens and the ones. If you want to think about 63 going to 184, do you remember when we talked about hundreds? 63, you need to have 9 tens and 10 ones to make 100. So 63 to 100 means I need 37. That would give me 9 tens and 10 ones. 100 going to 184 is 84. If I add these together, it's, again, takes a little mental thinking. In the tens number, I have 11 tens, but look, I have another 10 in the ones. That's 12 tens and 1 extra. Now this time, this is not really my favorite way. It works just fine. It's a little more difficult. This one is the one I like the most because I can look at these two numbers and subtract them very simply, just going from left to right. This one isn't my favorite one for this one either. Really, it's rarely my favorite to write them up and down. But you know what? You have a toolbox of math skills, and when you have to solve a problem, you pick up a tool and use it. And if you're going to build an entire house, only having a screwdriver is not enough. You need to have lots of tools. So we're going to put lots of tools in the toolbox, and I hope that you learn more than one way to solve a math problem, more than one way to think about adding and subtracting, so that on a problem, if this one isn't a great way to do it, don't use this tool this time. It's a little bit hard, but this is the tool you'll pull out of your toolbox for this one, and that'd be a great way to do it. Okay, do the word problems, have fun, think about them, try different tools for your problems. Go ahead and work now on exercise 6.